What's going on, Fritz?
Hanging in there, trying to recover from my back problem.
What happened to your back?
It's I think it's arthritis. Well, I don't think I know it's arthritis in the spine. So I had slight surgery last week. I'm having another one on Wednesday this week, and that should take care of it.
Hmm. Well, I hope it
It's
does
nerve
take care of it.
ablation. Yeah, that's what killed me at the V2. This time. I mean, I shot, but I was in terror. I was feeling terrible. But anyway,
Uh,
hopefully it'll be behind me.
the how was that hurting you? Or I guess I don't know. Explain to me why it was keeping you from shooting as good. Like, is it the
Because when I
position?
lay flat, when I lay prone, as soon as I move my arm this way to handle it, hold the rifle and the trigger, uh, my back just flares up down in the lumbar area. So basically, it takes my concentration away at the time when I most need it.
Yeah.
So just to prove the point, yesterday I went to the range. I did 15 shots at mid range, and I mean I know my range here, and I could basically as soon as I kind of guessed the wind, the pain would come and I'd miss the wind call. I mean on a 600-yard range, which is like almost unheard of. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's how it works.
Wow. Well, that
But
that
hopefully,
sucks.
hopefully they'll take care of it on Wednesday.
Yeah, I hope so. So you won the V2 finale last year, and I was just looking at your score. You won it with a 9-1. You shot 10 matches.
That's right, Eric. And if you remember when you interviewed me at the end of everything, right? I mean, it was a quick interview about how I felt about winning. I was so stressed out that I could hardly talk. Because you're right. I saw you mention. I think it was during the match when you were commentating it. You said that I'd shot 4 or 5 matches, but they were all elimination matches. And so at each one being an elimination match, you know, the adrenaline goes up, and because you're figuring, listen, I've been through all of this. If I drop a point, I'm out. So. But yeah, I was completely stressed out
So tell me about
at the.
the V square finale. How is that different than any other match that you go to?
Well, typically matches in the states are not pair firing or three to the mound firing. They're typically string fire, and typically you'll have to wait till the end of the day to see how you do, as opposed to the V2, which I think is one heck of a match. You know where you are exactly when you finish each stage. You know where you stand. So
Yeah,
I think that's the main difference. I think in the matches in comparing a regular match to the V2 match.
yeah. In a regular match, you don't have to go home. If you shoot bad, you can keep shooting.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't get eliminated.
yeah. At the V2, you go home because out of shame and because and because you're eliminated.
Yeah. The anyway, I'm just glad that that match is doing what it was meant to do, which is you know getting people out there shooting more so they can get points, and then once they're there,
Right,
to have a match unlike any other that they go to.
right, right,
So
right. And it is unique.
thank you. So tell me, how'd you get here? What gets you into F class?
Well, back in the '80s, I used to shoot sling, which obviously is why I wear that hat that you got.
We figured.
And then in '89, my company sent me overseas to take care of our subsidiary in Brazil, which handled all of South America actually. And so I lived there for about 12 years. And while I was there, I translated, with the help of a couple of others, the NRA rules for F class, so that the Confederation of Sport Shooting could start shooting those matches. And F class is quite popular in Brazil now. I think there's like 70 shooters down there now.
Wow.
But it's mid-range F class, 300 yards, no more than that, because they can't get ranges beyond that. So when I came back to the States in 2012, I had been shooting F class in Brazil, so I just kept shooting it. And then, fortunately for me, Speedy came down to Miami, you know. So it's like I had Speedy by myself for a couple of years. So he's the one that built my first F-class rifle, actually. Once I graduated from the, I think it was a Savage I was using back then. And from that point on, I started shooting. I liked the sport. You know?
So you started with a Savage, and obviously you went to a full custom rifle. What's the difference? What is it that you get with when you pay more money when you get a full custom rifle versus a Savage?
Well, and you get a rifle that shoots. So typically, once you go past the 100-yard setup, which Speedy taught me how to do, any errors are not going to be the rifles. So you learn how to, and it's a great tool in terms of learning how to read the conditions and in terms of knowing where to hold, because you know that whatever error you make is not the rifle. It's either your load or it's yourself, you know. And typically when you get past the load development, whatever errors occur are not the rifle, it's you. I think that's the main difference. You know?
You just get more consistency, correct?
More consistency, you get more confident. It's a lot of different things that happen. And at some point, it all clicks together, you know. In my case, it took like 4 years. And all of a sudden, everything clicked, you know, conditions, the loads, the rifle, and everything else. You know?
How were
with Speedy's help, obviously.
How were you working up loads on your own versus after you kind of got with Speedy?
Well, I use the Speedy technique to develop the loads. Speedy does he does seating depth and powder all at the same time. Okay, it's going across the it's a bench rest target for 100 yards. Going across the target, you'll start with a given load, and then you'll go from a jump to a jam in increments of I think 5,000, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that for the various loads, okay, across the target. And there are some things you need to observe, such as the angle of the groups, okay, whether they go up, whether they go down, whether they're flat. And at some point, you'll find the right seating depth and the right powder load. Or you can do them separately. Sometimes I do them separately. First, I'll do the powder, and then I'll do the seating depth. You know?
How do you do them together?
Well, you load. For example, let's say you're looking at 44 grains up to 44.4. So you do 44 with 5 seating depths. You do 44.2 with 5 seating depths. You do 44.4 with 5 seating depths, and then you'll pick the best group out of the lot. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. So
yeah, that he says Speedy told me that's how the bench rest guys do it.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Tony Boyd's book, something similar to that.
Yes, that's correct.
So how long does it take you to work up a load that you're confident with?
Well, I guess I've gotten lazy as I get older, so it's gotten a lot faster than it used to. In terms of picking something that looks very good, I would say probably about 4 days. Okay, which means from the house to the range for the powder, from the house to the range for the seating depth, all done at 100 yards, and then the house to the range once you get the right one for the tuner adjust. Okay, the last tuner I adjusted was yours on the rifle.
Did it work?
I think I sent you I think I sent you a target of those. You know?
Yeah. I don't want to get too much into tuners because apparently it's a controversial topic nowadays.
Not with me, it's not. I mean, I'm sold, you know.
So tell me about, because I know you're one of those shooters. I mean, it's not just you. I mean, anybody that goes to F-class or bench rest matches. I mean, mainly F-class. I don't have much experience with bench rest, but there's going to be tuners all up and down the line. Like it's
right.
All the top shooters are going to have them. Why do you use a tuner?
Well, the first rifle Speedy built me, the first barrel he put on it, did not have a tuner. And I think I wore the barrel out. And I told him, I said, Speedy, as good as you can adjust the seating depth to tighten your vertical, I said, you reach a point of no return where no matter how you move the seating depth around the good point, you won't get it any tighter. So that's when he's the next barrel he made me. He threaded it for the Buckies and sent it to me with the Buckies, and he said, "Here's how you adjust it." And I did. I adjusted at 100, went to 600, and the thing was, I mean, it was like a half of an X ring, you know, and vertical dispersion. So basically, that's how I do it, you know.
Okay. So the have you ever been in a situation where your rifle's not doing well, and then during a match, and then you can bring it back in?
To be honest with you, no. I've seen guys adjust tuners at 1,000 yards, and I've always been, I wouldn't say afraid to do it. I've always been doubtful as to how that would really work because there are just too many variables between you and the target, you know. What normally I'll do is go back to the 100 yards and readjust it there. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, when I get a break in between days, for example. If you look at my first day of the V2 last year, I was having trouble keeping the rifle in the 10 ring. That's when I shot against Ian. Yeah. When I went to the hotel that night, I decided to check, using the old tool, check the seating depth, and sure enough, I had like 3,000 erosion since the last time I checked it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called Speedy. So he says, "Yeah, readjust them, push them out 3,000." So that's what I did when I resat him because I seat him long. Fortunately, I sat him long. I was able to seat it 3,000 out. And the second day was that rifle really performed. I mean, it was really flat shooting rifle.
Yeah.
I could have probably gone to the 100-yard range and adjusted the tuner, but I was so stressed out after losing that that I said, "No, I'll go to the hotel."
Yeah, it's amazing what you got to make those decisions, right? Yep. And you gotta stay mentally strong to be able to still perform. Like you said, you were stressed out, you had just lost, but you still had enough mental capacity to say, "Okay, this is not going well. What do I need to do?" Mm-hmm. And right. Sometimes it's just enough mental capacity to say to know that you don't have it and just call somebody else, like you said. You called Speedy right. And right. diagnose it with him.
Yeah, Speedy's like a walking encyclopedia, So I got any doubts, I give him a call. Usually he doesn't pick up; he's on his lathe or something, but he'll call me back.
Yeah.
And I call you as well when I have some other doubts. I ask you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know where to go, right, for information. This is like it's constant learning in this.
I always say I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I have their phone numbers. So how do you get, you talked about like one day it clicks. How did you get to that point where it finally clicked?
I think that was the Worlds in 2017 in Canada. I would, you look at the conditions, you look at the flags, you look at the mirage. Typically we're more mirage readers down here in Florida. And you determine your hold. And when you shoot, if it goes where it's supposed to go, then basically you think, well, that's it, I've got it. And you do it again. And if you continuously do it that way, obviously with some exceptions, that's when it all clicked, for me. The load part had already clicked, and then it was the condition reading, the hold on the rifle, the follow through, etc. All that came together in 2017, about 5 years after I'd been shooting here.
But I think that's a natural progression. The loading has to always click first before the condition reading, because unless you have a good shooting rifle, you don't have good feedback. And enough right. good feedback to be able to learn how to read the conditions, right? You're right. chasing a condition that's not there. It's just the rifle spitting yep. shots left and right sometimes.
Yep, exactly. That's what I said. I think if you get a good rifle, a good custom rifle, from one of the great gunsmiths, whatever when it's not going where you expect it to go, it's not the rifle, And if your load was good at 100 and your load's decent at 600. There's no reason why it shouldn't go where you expect it to at 1,000. And if it doesn't, then it's you. You're not reading something right.
Speedy just sent me a text last night. He sold his F Open rifle. And the guy that he sold it to went and shot a 600 at 1,000 yards with it. That's impressive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he knows he got a good rifle.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that very few people have been able to do. I mean, the closest I've gotten is 599. And
yeah, I've never even got with an FTR rifle. I out of three matches, I cleaned one. The other two were you drop the usual 3 or 4 points type deal. Actually, that's not true. I think the last day of the where was it, of the Southwest Nationals, was it last year or 2 years ago? Keith won it, Keith Trapp, and that last day I think I lost it. We were equal in points, and we each dropped 2 points, for 2 matches.
Wow.
So at a 600 you drop 1 point, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. So again, a good rifle is a must.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I mean, so what is? You say you had a rifle build. What did you have him build you?
It was a 308. I decided FTR rather than F Open.
Yeah. You want to limp your way in? I get it.
Yeah. Right. So I sent Speedy the stock. It was a Ray Bowman low boy. He was still making them at that time. And Speedy I gave him the money, bought the barrel, the trigger. What else? When it came to the action, he sold me, or actually pretty much gave me, his Bat 3L, which he said was his when he shot bench rest. And that's what he put on the rifle. So that action's probably got 100,000 rounds to it. I'm guessing.
Is that the same one you're still shooting?
That's the same one I still shoot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
think if you grease them, they don't go bad.
Yeah, I mean, we're not working them that fast or any of that,
True.
And like you said, if you grease them, there's, nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
Now nowadays, what bullet were you shooting then, and what are you shooting now?
I started with the Burger 175s, as opposed to the Sling days when it was 155. So the F class was 175, and then I moved up to the 185s for mid range, and then when I started the long range, I went to the 200 hybrids, and then because of the U.S. team requirements, I forcefully migrated to the 220Xs, which is what I'm using now.
When you say Team USA requirement, is that what they require, that everybody shoot the 20Xs?
That's correct. Yeah, that decision was made in one of the team practices. There were 2 of us, I think, that shot the hybrids, and the other guys were using the 20Xs, so I said everybody use 20Xs.
Okay. Do you like it better than the 200s?
No, not personally. I love those hybrids, but hey, I lost like 3 months when I did the migration over to the 20X, just trying to get it to work. I think it's a more finicky bullet than the 200 hybrids.
Yeah. Now, as an FTR shooter, what do you do to the bullets to get them ready for a competition?
I used to start by measuring base to ogive, on the number of bullets I was going to use for the match. But I found out that I guess from about 2 years ago till now, that the base to ogive just doesn't vary. I mean, it's within 1,000. You know what I mean? So I no longer measure that. What I do is what I do measure, obviously, is overall length, because I separate them to be able to point them, and then I point them for long range. Mid range, I don't bother.
Yeah. Anything else? Just point them. That's it.
That's it. No. Well, measuring the overall length, I found a couple of bad bullets in the batch by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to point them, you've got to separate them first, and I do that by measuring the overall length, and that also helped me cull a couple of bad bullets, which were, one of them was, I think, 208. It was a 208 and a $200.
Oh, there you go.
That would have been disastrous.
So walk me through how you sort them and then point them. How do you decide?
I sort them. I sort them in groups, and I sort them in bins by thousandths of an inch. Right. So once I have them all sorted out and binned, then I will adjust the pointer for each box and just go ahead and point the contents of the box, and do the same thing for the next box, next bin, I should say, etc. Yeah.
So as the bullet gets longer, you back the die out by the same amount.
That's correct. You back the die out, but also you've got to have a I guess a happy point as far as pointing. You can easily overpoint bullets, I think, and it's hard to underpoint it because you always see a little difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very easy to overpoint. I mean, I think overpointing bullets is disastrous. Yeah.
Ah, I see. How much benefit do you get from pointing bullets?
It's not really. I'm not looking for what do you call it? For BC improvements. I'm really looking to normalize all the bullets, make them all the same. You know. So if making them all the same gives me a 0.5% BC improvement, that's great. If it doesn't, if it gives me 1%, that's better. If it gives me 0.25%, that's good. That's just as good. But they're all the same. That's the important thing.
Yeah, because you're going to minimize your vertical on target, right?
That's correct.
What is you kind of describe how you do your load development on your loads, your powder and your seating depth. What about extreme spread, chronograph numbers? Do you worry about that too much?
Yes, I do. Did I disappear on the screen here?
No, you're fine.
Oh, I don't see you. You disappeared.
Okay, but I'm good. So
you're good. Okay, yeah.
So on the you describe how you do your load development and your powder charge and seating depth. Right. What about extreme spread? Chronograph numbers. Do you worry about that too much?
Absolutely, that's a good point. I should have brought that up because that's the part of the initial development when you do the powder test. What I found out is that the Speedy built rifles, and I can testify because I got two of those, two FTR rifles that he built. For some reason, if I go above 2,680 feet with a 200 grain bullet, whether it's the 200.2 or the hybrid, I'll start seeing flyers. Okay. As you go up in velocity, you see more flyers. So when you get up to close to 2,700, forget it. It's like every fourth shot is a flyer. So I keep my velocity. My powder load is done to give me the velocity I'm looking for those rifles. That's the very first step, which in this case is 2650 to 2670. Yeah.
So you're looking for that speed.
Correct.
What if it doesn't have good numbers, or do you always get good numbers?
Then I'll start testing again. What I'm looking for is an extreme spread of 10 or better. Okay. If it's not 10 or better, then I start from scratch.
How many shots?
It's 5-shot groups is what they are.
Okay.
Yeah. And then of course that's verified once I get the seating depth part done. Then you start looking for groups to do the tuner adjustment. Then every shot is tested for velocity spread.
Yeah. So we talked about the bullet that you use. What about brass and powder?
I use the Lapua brass. I moved over from the large rifle primer brass to the Palma brass, I guess about 3 years ago. Which may have been a mistake because now I'm not making the small rifle primer brass anymore. But I found that when you've got a 200 grain bullet with a lot of powder behind it, the chances are the brass won't last, but 3 or 4 firings usually. But the small rifle primer brass lasts a lot more than that, which is why I moved over to it. So the Lapua brass and the powder, I use either Varga or Vitavori, either one. I've got both.
Which Vitavori do you use? 150?
The N150. Yeah.
How is that compared to Varget? I mean, I know Varget has been the go-to powder forever, but a lot of shooters have been winning, not only using, but winning with Vitavori N150 and N140.
Right. The N140 is closer to Varget than N150. N150 is a tiny bit slower than Varget. So you end up using a little bit more powder in the case, which I think is probably good because when you seed bullets way out, I don't think either Varget or the Vitavori powders like empty cases. I think they want to see full cases. That's usually what I've seen better results.
Mm-hmm. what's the if you were to shoot and compare the Varget versus the N150, is there benefit to one versus the other?
I think the N150 is it fouls a little bit more in Varget, carbon wise. Okay, which is where the IOSO really did the trick the other day when I asked you about it. Varget, I think carbon's up less, but the advantage to the Vita Vori is the fact that the copper, it has a copper expel in it, and it throws the copper out, which ends up in the tuner, by the way. so so when you clean the tuner, it comes out blue.
So tell us about that issue you were having with the carbon.
Yeah, I for some reason, the barrel that's on there now, I'd been trying to clean it as I normally do forever, and I just couldn't get the carbon that was in the grooves out of the barrel. So I went the whole thing. I went the Vortec, the usual things I do to get carbon out. Then I tried the Freol with a bronze brush, and I still had carbon in the grooves. Right? I mean, it was terrible. It bothered me. It also affected precision, I think, on the rifle. And that's when I asked you about it, and you recommended IOSO. I swear, I did 3 patches, and I put alcohol behind it to clean it, dried it, put the borescope in. It was so bright that I had to decrease the brightness on the borescope to be able to see. But it cleaned it completely.
Yeah. Well, good. The that carbon, man, once it builds up, it's hard to get it out, and it I've seen it more than once where it affects precision.
Right. Right.
You ever get that gravel road feel when you're running, you clean it right in there and it feels like a gravel road? That is bad. It's bad
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah. When that and that's what I was having on that barrel. When after a match you'd clean it with Vortec, for example, and you could feel it would be hard then easy. So as you push the patch down, right? And then after I IOSO'd it, I could probably use the single finger to push the whole board, the patch down the bore.
Yeah, there's a massive difference from myself when I'm cleaning a barrel, I put it up there first, and the first patch that I run through there is drastically different from the last one I run through. By the time the barrel's clean, that patch is just run smooth through there, and I can't help but wonder. Well, I don't even wonder. I know how much it affects the bullet. Just that what I call the gravel road feel.
Yeah, strangely enough, and those were the 15 rounds I shot yesterday at the range. After I had cleaned the barrel based on your recommendation, and then I went to shoot yesterday to see. Interesting enough, my first round was usually I'd get a minute low, and then the other rounds would be where they should be. First round was right where it should have been.
Yep.
With a clean barrel.
Mine are usually about a MOA low, but
right.
Yeah, it depends on barrels are different, as you know.
Yeah.
And they kind of behave. They have their own behavior, and I don't know. Some are magical and some are not.
Yeah, that's right. Some are homers and others are not. Yeah.
What about primers?
I use the CCI primers. I've also used the Federal primers. I used to use CCI originally, and then I had a problem with not misfires, but light strikes. And Speedy said, "Well, move over to CCI," which I did, and it stopped the light strike problem. And then I went back to I think it was a spring problem in the firing pin. Then I went back to the Federals, but those Federals were getting old, and even though they'd been stored okay, they were 7 years old. And I noticed that my extreme spread was getting bigger, even with a new barrel. And I went back to CCI, and sure enough, tightened up again. So that's where I am now.
Yeah. So you got pretty much the components that it's a proven combination, right? You got the Lapua brass, the Vita Vori powder or Varget. You got the Berger 220Xs or 200s hybrids. And then you got, of course, primer, CCI or Federal. What about barrels? Have you? What are you shooting barrel-wise nowadays?
I used to do used to use the Bartlett 5 Rs, and then about 3 years ago, well, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Speedy says, "No, you got to shoot four groove barrels." Right. So he moved me over to four groove. Now I typically trust him, whether it's a Bartlett or whether it's a Krieger barrel. If he says that barrel is good, then it's good because he slugs them and pins them. And so I've been shooting four groove barrels, and I think the one that's on there now is a Bartlett, I think, but it's a four groove. Yeah.
What's the difference between the four groove and the five groove? And don't say one groove. Like, what have you seen to be the difference, or what was Speedy's reasoning behind it?
He told me at the time. He said that they'd been having a lot of good luck in Texas with the four groove barrels. Yeah. So he said, "Here, try that one," which I did, and the thing shot lights out. And from that point on, I keep asking him, make sure it's a four groove. But I think probably either one would work. I mean, the five groove, the Bartlett 5Rs worked fine for me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, how do you go about preparing for a big match nowadays?
Well, I try not to wait till the last minute to do the loading. Which had become like habit forming after a while. You wait 3 days before the match to load, 400 rounds, and that's the first stress point, I guess. But no, the first thing I'll do is load. I usually start loading about 10 days before the match. Yeah, except in the case of like South Africa, I end up doing 500 rounds, 4 months before the match. But so you do I load them long, okay, because I take the Wilson die with the little arbor press to be able to see them after I measure. Learned that lesson from the last V2. So I'll load about 10 days before, and then make sure all the equipment you're taking is still good, right? Because stuff rides in the back of the truck. Some of it goes bad after a while, humidity, etc., especially down here in Florida. So I check the bipod, the rear bag, the bipod, the front bag, which goes under the bipod skis. Make sure that all that's okay. The rain gear, which is the plastic that I take with me in case it rains, be able to cover the action, and the ammo that I'm going to use. My spotting scope, make sure that that's okay. And typically that's about it. As far as equipment's concerned.
Yeah.
Now support equipment like cleaning rods and everything else, I pack that separately a couple of days before I get ready to leave.
You talked about the front bipod. I noticed in FTR, you guys have different styles, and watching the V Squared videos really outlines how different shooters have different styles.
Right.
What kind of bipod do you use?
I'm using the SEB, the Joypod X now, I guess he calls it. I used to use a Phoenix, but I've noticed that the Phoenix jumps a lot more than the SEB bipod does. So when I started using the SEB and my jumping was basically a half a target rather than two targets, I stayed with it.
Ah, okay.
And also the advantage of adjusting. A lot of the guys that use the Phoenix have arrows that they bring, arrow bodies, to be able to adjust the vertical wheel on the Phoenix. And SEB's is just the joystick itself.
Yeah. So, what is your process for shooting? Again, I've noticed different shooters have different techniques.
Right.
Do you, for example, obviously you take your shot, follow through, I assume. Walk me through your process of how you go about executing a shot.
Right. Well, once you've looked and judged the conditions, and you do that with your head off the rifle, unfortunately, I've never managed to. Some guys can do it, look through a spotting scope and look through the left eye or the right eye while their head is still on the rifle. I can't do that. So, I lift my head up a little bit, look around, make sure that the conditions are what I think they are. Then I'll adjust the hold accordingly. This is with my head back on the rifle. And then, the trigger squeeze. Pull the rifle slightly back into the shoulder. Okay, I found that FTR is hard to fire free recoil. So I pull the rifle slightly into the shoulder, no cheek pressure, just basically just almost not touching. And once I press the trigger or squeeze the trigger and do the follow through, the first thing I do after that is release the trigger and then adjust the bipod again to put me back on target. Okay? In case the next round I load goes off by itself, then at least I'll get somewhere on the paper.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I do is to turn my head to look at the results. Okay?
In FTR, you guys are obviously ballistically challenged as opposed to F open.
Yes. Right.
How much do you typically have to move on target from one shot to the next?
Like I said, it's in my case, when the rifle moves, it'll move a half target, which means that if it was, let's assume I was holding center X, it'll move to like a 9 left, typically.
No,
okay?
What I'm asking is on your wind holds. Like, let's say you're holding a right 2, and then you see the wind pick up. How much do you move by? Like, do you have a minimum?
How much? Okay. Yeah, it's, I guess a lot of it's gut feel, and you see the result from the shot you take, and then you adjust from that point on. Yeah.
But you don't have.
But a lot of it has to do with gut feel.
Yeah.
And knowing that, for example, right wind, normally what I've seen has less of an impact on the hold than left wind. Yeah. Probably because of twist rate. I don't know. But when the mirage and the wind picks up from the right, my hold would be less than if the same amount of wind and mirage had come out of the left.
I see. How much do you typically move by in a match? For example, are you moving 1 ring at a time, or 2 rings, or 3 rings? What's the most you moved from shot to shot? I don't know.
Yeah, at some point, I'll put wind on the scope. Mm-hmm. Okay. If I see that I'm moving more than 2 rings, 2.5 rings, if I was holding, say, let's assume I was holding 1 right, and all of a sudden conditions pick up, and I've got to go to 4 right, I'll put wind on the scope. Okay. So I end up holding like 2.5 right. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course you have to remember, because if things change, so you can take it off.
Yeah, that's the hard part. It's I always try not to put any wind on the scopes, because of that reason right there. It's and I've seen it happen many times. They'll dial scope, they'll dial the scope, and multiple things can happen. One of which is they dial it the wrong way.
Right.
And that's obviously catastrophic. And 2, they put some wind in there. They get a couple shots on paper, and then the wind dies down.
Right.
And now they're having to hold, downwind. And it's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, this last V2, when I shot with Drew, it was switching out of the left and then the right and then the left. So you ended up having a crossover. Fortunately, I didn't. I think I only had a half-minute wind on the scope at that point, and I just left it, and then started to compensate from that point on.
Yeah, that's.
But
tough.
if I'd put a lot of wind on there, at some point I would have forgotten, and I would have held wrong.
Yeah, that's always dangerous. Now, what about, how do you come up with a good wind zero? Because that's important. Because like you talk about, if you're switching both sides of the target, if you don't have a good wind zero on your rifle, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah. When I'm doing the after I do the tuner adjust, then I'll go for the no wind zero adjust at 100 yards. Okay. And if for some reason I've got doubts about the scope or whatever, I'll do a tall target test also at 100. But I get my no wind zero at 100 yards. After I adjust the tuner, then I go for the no wind zero.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. And no wind is important, because if it's windy when you go do it at 100 yards, it'll still blow that bullet. And most people don't realize
But not as much as if you try to do it at 600 or 300 or whatever.
Obviously, but it just, a lot of people think that a bullet doesn't get blown around at 100 yards. But
it does.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
And it doesn't take much. But once you get out to 1,000, I mean, if you're off by a quarter MOA at 100 yards, that's, plus you got spin drift to deal with. And The did you have a mentor going into the game?
Yeah, when I first started, it was Speedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
Actually,
that?
no. When I first started, it was with the Savage rifle. I really didn't. I read a lot, and did the usual thing. Got Tony Boyer's book, et cetera, et cetera. But when the big change, mentor wise, was when Speedy moved to Florida for 2 years.
I guess that it really speeds up your learning process because you don't have to go and try to figure out on your own. You can simply pick up the phone
Exactly.
and ask the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you what about new shooters? What is it that, do you see them struggle with the most?
Yeah, we have several new shooters here at the club. I try to help them out as much as possible. You can't help them when you see them come on the line with a Remington 700. There's not much you can do with that. And, so you tell them the first thing, get it. You want to keep the rifle, get a decent barrel for it. Type deal. But as far as wind reading and mirage reading, especially mirage down here, we help them out quite a bit. Because they get all confused when they see. One of them called it the squigglies. When he saw the little squiggles. He says, "I'm seeing too many squigglies. I can't tell where I am." I said, "Okay, well, let's take it step by step here." So, yeah, we help them learn. Once they get to reading the mirage, then they're about halfway home. As far as shooting on the range down here.
Yeah, well, the fact that he could see them is already a huge plus.
Exactly. Some guys can't see them for quite a while.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what's next, Fritz? I know you couldn't make it to the World Championship.
Yeah, I had a family related problem. I didn't go, but hopefully the next. I'm gonna make the Southwest Nationals in February, and then definitely the V2 next year. And hopefully my back will obviously be better, even though it sucks getting old. But I'll be at the V2 at the Southwest Nationals in the and the V2.
Good. Well, we'll see you there. All right, Fritz. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for
all right, Eric,
having a chat with us.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.